Mullinger's Weekly Ramble.
Hello, my friends. It is Wednesday, the 24th of September, 2025, which of course means it is time for episode 67 of Mullinger's Weekly Ramble. I am here in the studio, and of course by studio I mean loft, IKEA desk, surrounded with pillows and cushions, because that's what they say makes the sound good. Anyway, we are here, you are here. I've got so much to cover. Last week was, of course, as you know, the busiest week ever. I literally felt like I drove all of New Brunswick. In fact, I did 4 provinces last week: Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, and then went over the bridge to Quebec from Campbellton. Anyway, so many fun things to share with you, so many fun adventures. And this week is also exciting. Tonight, I'm performing at the Kingston Peninsula Farmers Market, the kind of gig that I live for. It is a fundraiser for the Kingston Farmers Market. My dear friend Freeman Patterson will be in the house. I have the amazing Brad Rice and Corey Hartley opening for me, and they are also opening for me this Friday at the Fredericton Playhouse, my annual Fredericton Playhouse show, which I have to be honest, always kind of stresses me out a little bit, as I guess it should do. 750 people is a lot, obviously, and as a lowly, humble New Brunswick comedian, I still take that responsibility. I guess it's different for those big name comedians that are kind of playing those kind of rooms every single night. It probably just becomes part of a rhythm. Whereas for me, the responsibility is still there. Of course, I think also what kind of hinges on it is the fact that those Fredericton Playhouse shows are always, touch wood, fingers crossed, please God, pray, the highlights of my year. There's something about the energy in the Playhouse, and of course I imagine the new Performing Arts Centre that the Playhouse are building right now will equally have that same energy. It is in a separate location. It's where FYI Doctors used to be. And I think I've done the Playhouse, I did it this exact Friday a year ago. Remember it vividly, feels like yesterday. And 2 years ago, remember that very well, because I remember the night before I was doing a corporate for the Power Union Workers of Ontario, and it was at a casino resort in Niagara Falls, and I was genuinely, legitimately terrified I wouldn't make it back. This was during lots of flight difficulties, 2023, I guess this was, yes, 2023 it was, 2 years ago, and I was super, super worried about getting back. Well, of course, as you would be. I mean, waking up. I seem to remember I actually booked 2 flights just to ensure that I booked one out of Billy Bishop, one out of Pearson, just to be safe. Because, again, the pressure of 750 people waiting for you, don't want to miss that show. But what had happened on the Thursday night was the Power Unit Workers gig was, should we say, tricky. I had done a gig for them many years before. However, this time around, someone had decided to, the classic curse of the difficult corporate gig, scrimp on the tech. And as a result, usual thing, there was no stage lights, the mic was poppy, the stage was bouncing about, massive dance floor on the stage. And it was, for all intents and purposes, a categorical disaster of a gig. So my brain, of course, ADHD brain, you are not able to, the problem with ADHD is it doesn't know what to filter out and what to ignore and what to balance. So I was just kind of plagued with these thoughts of, oh my God, you're actually not a comedian after all. You spent 20 years faking it. It finally been found out. So I came back, and luckily I got back safely. Arrived back in St. John. Was just so delighted to land at my beloved St. John Airport, and made it to the show. And then basically it was one of the best shows of the year. And that is, if one, there's many things that sum up the roller coaster nature of this job, and the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs. It's that Thursday night, down your ass in Niagara Falls. Friday night, Fredericton Playhouse. Packed theatre, full house standing ovation, just absolutely, beyond. And I don't know what it was. And again, so I'm constantly always trying to get myself back into that mindset. So of course, right now this week, my preparation process is, luckily, I do keep not only obviously I have footage and audio or audio of all the shows. I've basically done it almost every year for the last 6 years, which is a lot. As well as obviously many other gigs in Fredericton. But I did it in 2019, the Playhouse, then obviously not in 2020 due to the COVID. In 2021, we did a series of distanced shows. Then again in 22, 23, 24, now 25. I will probably take a break next year. I don't want to oversaturate the market, which is I guess a Wall Street way of saying make everybody sick of me. I don't want everyone to get sick of me. Is the point? So I might do some little fun shows next year, possibly at the Comic Sutra, and then pause the Playhouse for a year, or maybe just wait for the big new PAC to open and do that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this Friday night will be probably my last ever time performing at the Fredericton Playhouse in its current form. And so thank you, beautiful Fredericton Playhouse, and Tim and everyone there for many years of fun. Can't wait for the new one. And if anyone is coming to the show, anyone has any tips, so basically this is my process. My process for this week is sitting around watching and listening to all of the audio and the footage from previous years. And it's funny because now and again there's something that I think, I haven't done that joke there. I could do that. A couple of examples I kind of thought earlier. I didn't realize I was thinking I hadn't done the Nurse Lyle story there, and I thought that would be a great thing to close with tonight. Then I discovered that I actually did do it in 2022. So I'm meticulously trying to blend. This is the weird thing with always changing a show every single night, is that it's hard to keep track. I guess normal comedians, when they go on tour, they get their 60 or 90-minute show nailed, and they do the same show every night. I don't know. I'm assuming this is how it works for like the Sarah Millicans, the Kevin Bridges, the Rick Mercer's, the Ron James. I'm assuming Mark Norman. Is that how it works? I know lots of these comics open with some local stuff, but generally, because I'm mixing up every night, I really do have to go back and see. Well, anyway, I'm boring you already. I think I'm boring you. If anyone has any hot tips I'm basically sitting around, so I'm meticulously listening to old footage, also working out what from my new material from this year is going to land big, where to place it, how to close, all of these things. I'm also desperately trying to tighten my shows. Sometimes theatre shows do come in at an hour and 40 minutes, which with an opener or two doing either 10 or 20, it's a 2-hour show, it's too long. Bill Burr says the optimum amount of time on stage is an hour and 10 minutes for the I don't say headliner because we're all in it together, but for the final act of the night, the person whose name above the door, whatever, an hour and 10 minutes. Now, if one of the greatest comedians of all time is doing an hour and 10, some limey prick should not be doing an hour and a half, hour and 40. So I'm trying to tighten it all up, make what I do better, tighter. Everything good in life is tight. I don't know. No. So I am, being an absolute lunatic. As you know, I like to write brand new jokes specific for every show. Some of I noticed there was a joke I did a few years ago about Trudeau's cocaine plane when there was the Trudeau Nazi cocaine scandal 2 years ago. I wrote a joke that day, opened with it at the Playhouse, landed massive. So I'm trying to do that for this Friday. So if anyone has any local intel, Fredericton things that are going on, my dear friend Greg Parker, who moved from England to Fredericton, I believe 9 years ago. Doesn't time go fast, Greg? And his lovely wife Alex, they are always very helpful in sharing local intel with me of things that are happening in Fredericton. So if you're listening to this and you're in Fredericton or around Fredericton, please just drop any intel to me. Okay, crack on, James. You're boring everyone. Oh, very exciting news. Very exciting. For next week, we do have a new sponsor, and it is one very, very close to my heart. I think you all know how much I love my beloved St. John Airport. Well, thanks to the great people at YSJ, as you may know this already, that we are flying to Halifax again from St. John, thanks to a collaboration between YSJ and Pascan Aviation. So basically, thanks to this growing relationship with thanks to Pascan's growing relationship with Air Canada, Travellers can now book flights to destinations across Canada and around the world from St. John through Halifax just by logging into Expedia or contacting your preferred travel agent, making it easier than ever to reach national and international destinations through Canada's largest carrier. I know. So Pascan has also joined forces with Porter as well. So what I'm trying to say is Pascan are doing amazing things. They're crucially doing amazing things out of St. John Airport. I think you all know how much I love St. John Airport. This has been well documented over the years, both in videos, on stage. I remember when a few years ago I hosted a gig when there was a new airline joining YSJ, and I hosted like a live event in the airport and welcomed passengers off the plane. And it was absolutely magical. And funny enough, some comedians I knew that were coming in to play Yuck Yucks got off the plane. Anyway, it's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to start off. So this is starting next week. So next week will be a much more professional intro, mid-reel, and outro about the incredible Pascan Aviation and the amazing things that they are offering through our beloved YSJ. But in the meantime, I will just share with you my latest favorite story about my beloved St. John Airport. So, as many of you know, last week we had the debaters here in St. John and also in Charlottetown. When I last spoke to you, I believe it was the day after the debaters recording at St. John. Peter White and I had gone head-to-head debating St. John versus St. John's. I am praying, by the way, that when these debaters episodes air, that enough people... It is quite... Again, I'm aware in the world right now, there is a lot of talk about... obviously people being cancelled, and for once it's actually people actually being cancelled. Thankfully they have been uncancelled, but clearly the battle isn't over because there are people in power still wishing to cancel comedians. But as of right now, I guess the takeaway from sidetrack, ramble, the takeaway from the Kimmel thing is that you, me, we, the people, actually do still hold some power. Disney did not back down on this, on their move for any other reason than objections from ordinary people, crucially, those of us who cancelled our subscriptions to things. We do still have power, and that power is, collectively, we have power when we all speak up against something that we see is wrong and we know is wrong, but we also have power financially, even if we don't have much. The fact that all collectively, if all the people are cancelling their subscriptions, clearly is what led to Disney taking a basically walking back on their decision. And companies like that don't often do that, especially when they have the wrath of the most powerful man in the world raising them. Anyway, I'm hoping when this, as you know, over the years, I've done different debates. A few years ago, I did I argued against this, luckily, but regardless, in the debaters is like a high school debate where you're given a motion to argue and you have to argue it no matter what. It's about the skill of debate. Of course, it's a comedy show. And why isn't there a TV version of the CBC's debaters? By the way, it's one of the greatest comedy concepts ever. England has like 50 different panel shows from Taskmaster, 8 out of 10 Cats. Would I lie to you? I know this because you're always telling me that you watch them all on YouTube. Why does Canada have none? It makes absolutely no sense. Separate complaint for another time. But I do have some positive news about comedy in Canada coming up, and it involves Campbellton. Anyway, I often when these debates air, I get inundated with hate mail, and of course, because people either take what I've said seriously, or they don't even listen to what I've said. They just look at the motion. The debates, you're given a subject and you argue it whether you believe it or not. And of course, some is they're ridiculous. I mean, Derek Sagan and I arguing English versus French. Of course, no one's going to argue if one nationality or one country's culture is better than another. I mean, you might argue it, but that's to be done privately. It's definitely not to be done on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation network. Anyway, what's my point? Yes, because I am planning a tour date at the beautiful Majestic Theatre in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador next year. Obviously, in my debate in favour of St. John, I made rude jokes about St. John's. I love St. John's. It's a comedy show. Anyway, you get this. You're listening to. Why am I explaining to you? You're the Mullinger's Weekly Ramble listeners. You're the smartest listeners out there. Sometimes I act like I'm talking to idiots, but it's impossible. You can't listen to this podcast and be an idiot. That's true, isn't it? It's absolutely true. So, how are we? Oh my goodness, 15 minutes in. Okay, here's my story. So, I am heading to Charlottetown to debate airports with the great Sean Hogan. As he is leaving St. John, Steve Patterson, one of the Canada's greatest comedy talents and host of CBC's Debaters, phones me to say, James, I'm sorry, I need a favor. I'm heading out of town. I left my, what's it called? Not my podcast, an iPad. I forgot the word iPad. I left my iPad on the plane. And then he goes to carry on. He goes to carry on, i.e. he goes on to say, look, I know it's a long shot and I'm sure it's been lost. And I just said, I'll stop you there. I said, I'm great friends with the head of the airport. She's amazing. In fact, I was with her on Saturday. I also have a very, very good lead there, which is the great Jorge. Now, Jorge, some of you would have heard me tell this story before on stage and many times because it sums up, A, what's great about living in a place like where we live, B, it sums up what's great about living near a small airport like St. John, where you can arrive, 10 minutes before the flight's due to leave and still squeeze in 3 delicious pints of Moosehead before you get on the plane. Happy days, lovely jubbly. You need a coffee? 1 step. Bathroom? 2 steps. Gate? 3 steps. It's like the IKEA of airports. Small, efficient, but unlike IKEA, you're not going to get lost for 4 hours. And it's the vibe. It's the fact that it feels like a town meeting emotionally. You go into St. John Airport, everyone's polite, everyone knows each other. A massive shout out to Jan, by the way, who makes the greatest chicken salad sandwiches in the world. That is right. I am someone who occasionally goes to St. John Airport when I'm not picking up a rental car, when I'm not traveling, just to have one of Jan's delicious sandwiches. True story. Ask my wife. You don't need to ask her. You can if you want. Feel free to go. She'll be very confused. She's never listened to this podcast. 67 episodes, never heard it. But she'd be very confused if you went up to her in Costco and went, Bosh, I'm a rambler. Is it true James goes for chicken salad sandwiches at the airport? She would think it, well, I don't think she would think it's weird because I've created a world for us where nothing is weird anymore. And everyone knows everything about our some of the intimate details of our life and sex life. Anyway. I've got millions of things to run through. I've got a mountain of papers around me. Haven't got to any of it yet. Here's my point. Here's my story. This is the story that I told to Steve when I cut him off, when he phoned in a panic about his iPad that he had left on the plane when he flew into St. John from Toronto. Here's what I told him. Jorge, absolute legend. By the way, an amazing photographer and drone photographer. I will, if you want his Instagram handle, I will share it with you. In fact, I should just shout it out now. Let me see if I can get it up. He takes absolutely, like myself, moved to St. John for a better quality of life. Let me see if it comes up. Here we go. I've got it. So his Instagram handle is JORG. Do you want to get a pen? No, don't get a pen. Just write it straight into the phone, you morons. Don't write it on a piece of paper. I'm not blaming you for that. JORGENRIQUE 217. He is an aerial video expert, an advanced drone pilot. Absolutely stunning pictures. Lots of stunning pictures of the cruise ships coming into St. John. Also stunning pictures of the gorgeous scenery here. Like myself, again, someone who moved here, better quality of life, and has fallen in love with the place and the people. Instead, there was 3 cruise ships in yesterday. I couldn't believe it. Literally, the city was just absolutely buzzing. Too many sidetracks. Jorge emailed me a couple of years ago, messaged me on Facebook saying, we didn't know each other at this point, by the way. He wrote to me and said, I just found a pair of headphones with the name Hunter on it. I seem to remember hearing you say in a show or whatever that you have a son named Hunter. Are they his? I said, yes, my son Hunter lost his headphones. That's so kind. I'll come and get them. And he said, never mind, I'll drop them at your house. And I said, okay, let me give you the address. And Jorge said, don't worry, it's St. John. I know where you live. Okay, beautiful, magical. So Steve, He's in a panic, thinks he's lost his iPad. And I'm saying, look, you just stay here. I told him the Jorge story. I said, let me just quickly message Jorge. Within 30 seconds, he replies saying, yep, the iPad's been found. Come and get it. Went to get it. It was back with Steve before the end of the day. Delivered to him personally by myself in Charlottetown. That's what you get. You don't get that can you imagine at Heathrow losing an iPad, leaving an iPad on the plane? Well, I know because my kids have left many things on planes. I had another instance once actually where I was at Moncton Airport. I had 2 suitcases similar. I was flying, actually weirdly enough, flying to see Steve Patterson in Woody Point and in Newfoundland and Labrador for the Woody Point Comedy Festival. It was the day I met Mayor Irene Martin, if those of you remember that joke I used to do. I have 2 identical suitcases. One has the liquids in, one doesn't have the liquids in. I accidentally check the wrong one, get to go through the x-ray. Of course, they go, well, this is full of bottles of shampoo and liquids that are far too big. I realize I've put the wrong bag in, so they let me go. I run back to the counter, and they just climb through the hole, get my suitcase, and switch them over. That's the amazing service you get in a small airport. So anyway, that took a long time. So we had that took a very long time. Anyway, next week there will be insights into the brilliance of Pascan Aviation and the work they're doing with YSJ. God bless you, Laurie. God bless you, Jorge. Okay, so after I recorded last week's podcast, I then went to walk the dog. I then wrote a Leslie Choice is many of you may know, is I would say like the literary Lorente of Atlantic Canada, who's written more than 100 books. Almost anyone who's written a book he has who you might love or know, or he has mentored. He and I have become friends and actually have started a pen pal relationship. He recommended these tuna burgers, which he says can save the world. Now, given the state of the world is in right now, I think we might need to try anything. And his tuna burgers, oh my god, you just get a tin of normal tuna, some oats, egg. I'll give you Leslie's recipe if he does mind. It's too late. I've offered it now. Well, no, if a tuna burger is going to save the world, then you're going to need people. You can't not share the recipe. What kind of a joke would do that? Yeah, I've got the solution to save the world, but I'm not going to share it. So yes, of course he won't mind me sharing the recipe. These tuna burgers are absolutely delicious. I made 4 and then ate 4, and then proceeded to write Leslie a long letter. I started watching the Morning Show season 4, which is of course the Apple TV, the channel that wants you to subscribe to it, even though it only comes out with a new show every 6 months, and that show is only the Morning Show and Slow Horses and other weird looking shit. Oh, Platonic, yes, Platonic, very good, very good. Seth Rogen being Seth Rogen. Although I guess he's not. I know Seth Rogen's the king of the world now, which is good because he's Canadian. So I take that back. Seth Rogen Seth Rogen spreading himself a little bit thinly. And what I'm trying to say is all the effort is clearly going into the studio, not going into the Platonic scripts. But that said, Platonic still significantly better than The Morning Show. The Morning Show is, of course, the Jennifer Aniston. Does anyone here actually subscribe to... You know you're rich if you subscribe to Apple TV Plus and just stay subscribed to it. What we do, the real people, you basically subscribe to it when a new season is a new show is a couple of episodes in, take the free trial, and then end it. The Morning Show, and that's the Morning. Well, so I suppose it's American, isn't it? Apple, so we should be cancelling it anyway. But take the free trial. Morning Show, Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, and it's the show about. It's the show that doesn't know what it wants to be. The first couple of seasons were about how problematic it is to have. Well, I guess it worked. It started off kind of a very anti-sexual, problematic relationships, and then now because it needs to, they've run out of ideas. They're now adding more sex. Anyway, it's not great. So anyway, we're going to zip through. So the Debaters was lovely. It was lovely to be back at the Confederation Centre of the Arts. Time flies. I hadn't been in there since doing the Debaters there about 7 years ago. Stayed at the Rod in Charlottetown Friday. hot-footed it to Campbellton for the Campbellton Comedy Festival. So here's where we're going to get to. I've got mountains of bits of baby. So I think I can close the diary. I'm going to say this. The Campbellton Comedy Festival, I was approached by Mark Savoy, who a few years ago I did a gig for him at the Salmon Comedy Festival in Campbellton, and then a corporate gig for his law firm. Very, very wonderful man, and a man who knows and loves comedy. So he approached me about it, and then I saw that Nathan McIntosh was doing it, various other comedians that I respect. I knew that Nathan Dimitrov was involved, so I was excited. Now, Nathan McIntosh and I both did debaters on Tuesday, and then Nathan actually took a couple of days. Nathan, obviously, as many of you know, is from the Maritimes, very, very successful stand-up in New York now, has been on The Tonight Show. Actually been on The Tonight Show a couple of times and got 2 standing ovations. So I knew he was doing it, so I knew it was going to be good. I'm blown away by what the team have achieved. Nathan Dimitrov, Mark Savoy, Amelie, who just worked around the clock to create. It was the year 1 of the comedy festival. I've done a lot of comedy festivals in a lot of countries over the years, and I have never seen one come off so successfully on year 1. The attention to detail, the lineups from Darren Frost, Mike Patterson, Julian Dion, Don Bernard, Lynn Woods, Caitlin Dean, Ryan Whitaker, who won the Hubcap contest. I got to perform with him on the big gala show. Phenomenal comedian. Lynn Woods, of course, amazing. Lynn Solange. Who else? Oh, and then, of course, actually on the family show, got to work with Samuel Savoy, a young lad doing his first set ever. Congratulations, Samuel. It was very, very lovely to meet you, my friend. But I went to even though I speak or understand very little French, went to enjoy and watch after doing my 2 shows. Went to watch and enjoy the French show. Basically, all the shows were all across Campbellton, but the big ones were in the Civic Centre in the hockey arena. They set up the stage majestically. So it was Mike Patterson, Lynn Solange, Nathan Dimitrov, and then Philippe Laprise, who is one of the biggest comedians in French comedy. Now, how on year 1 you put together a comedy festival, a bilingual comedy festival that manages to be so fun, so well organized, and I just want to say, if you are listening to this and you have any, if you are looking to support or get involved with or sponsor a comedy festival, or get involved with a bilingual community cultural arts event in Northern New Brunswick, then Awesome Comedy Fest is the way to go. Absolutely blown away. Had so much fun. The Friday night show again was worried at first, I guess. Big stage in a hockey arena. The sound sometimes can be, but Justin, the tech guy, was an absolute maestro. Made it look absolutely beautiful. The lighting, the staging, the way that the performers were treated, all off the charts incredible. Had a phenomenal set and show Friday night. Then went back to the suite where all the comedians were hanging out. Chatted for a bit and went back to the room and wrote like the most lengthy diary post about just how I'd been through like a week of kind of ups and downs and anxiety and panic and fear about different responsibilities and shows. And I basically felt incredible. Like, I mean, that is the nature of it's the nature of the job. It's certainly the nature of with an ADHD brain, and when you're flooded with dopamine from both the show, and then you got people like Mike Patterson, who are just like the best in the business, saying nice things about your set, or it just it was lovely. It was so nice to also see Nathan McIntosh again. Again, it's funny how you don't see in this business, you don't see people for months or years on end, and then we've actually done 4 things together this in the past kind of 3-4 weeks. And that's the 3-4 weeks since he got married to his amazing, beautiful wife, Liz, who is such a joy and so much fun to hang with. Anyway, so that was the Friday night. And the Saturday morning, Caitlin, Dean, and I went on the most fun adventure. Now, first of all, we went to check out her grandparents' house, which is one of the most famous kind of houses in Campbellton, in that people know it. We knocked on the door. The kind gentleman let us in. He couldn't give us a full tour because his wife was not well. But and again, very sorry for taking up unannounced, my friend. And Kenny gave me basically the Campbellton tour. Now it's funny how I have. There's a thing that I am guilty of, which is I have been to a few places in New Brunswick and the Maritimes, or indeed Canada, I guess anywhere, where you go somewhere to do a show and you don't really get to see much of the place, so you think that's all there is. Now, an example being, and Adam Lorden knows this because I've told him, first few times I went to Miramichi, I was only in Chatham, which is very lovely, don't get me wrong, and I was playing the Vogue Theatre, God bless his soul, tragically burnt down during the COVID. One of my all-time favorite venues ever to perform in was the Vogue in Miramichi. I thought that's all there was of Miramichi. Then, of course, when we were filming Atlantic Edition and interviewing Adam, and I got to see Newcastle, I'm like, oh, there's that. And then I got to see the beautiful parts around it when we were filming Bit Out of Water. So similarly with Campbellton, I didn't realize there was more to Campbellton basically than the Quality Inn and around there. So Caitlin took me along, went to I must have, I've got some paper here. Yeah. Morrissey Rock, Tidehead Beach, drove through all of the communities, went to see the beautiful churches, the stunning views. Campbellton is a marvel. And it was just so nice. Well, also what was so nice about the festival and the shows was, of course, you got lots of people there from Quebec because it's just right over the bridge. So it felt like a true interprovincial community, bilingual celebration, really, of what makes Canada great. And part of the theme of my new show that I'm writing for next year is about the theme of how we can all be more Canadian and crucially train other countries to be more Canadian. So all of that fell into that. So just had a wonderful morning. Then we went and did the family show, which again was so much fun. Doing a clean set for all ages, and really feeling that responsibility of going, wow, this is a lot of children's first ever comedy show. It needs to be good. So, or rather, I want them to leave having had a great experience. So for years to come, those children, those 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds are wanting to go and see comedy when they're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And I mean that because, again, as you know, there are lots of 90-year-olds in my shows, my target audience. After the show, Kate and I had planned a fun afternoon, evening, where we have for years, because we share a birthday, we've been planning. We always talk about how being birthday twins. We always plan. One time we bumped into each other at the arcade bar in St. John on my birthday, maybe 5 years ago. In fact, it was 2021. I think I'd played the Capitol Theatre the night before with Shane Ogden. This all rings a bell. And then I went to End Sushi with Adam Newhouse, and then bumped into Caitlin anyway, we did Yoga Bombs and we said we should do this again. When I'd said that we were going to party like it was March 11th, Michelle Limpetit has messaged me saying, go easy on Caitlin. She's a lightweight. Now, I'm here to report that is not the case. We did what we said we were going to do. We met. We went to the 1026 pub, which is attached to the Quality Inn in Campbellton. I know, sounds like a party. Where the last time I'd been in there was actually before this trip, was in 2018 when I was vacationing in Rexton with the family, then drove to Campbellton for the Salmon Comedy Festival and Nathan Dimitrov and I sat in there. Anyway, what's my point? Where am I going with this? Michelle Limpetit had messaged saying, go easy on Kate, and she's a lightweight. Now, not true is the point, because we did what we said. We had a bite to eat. We had some beers. We had some Jaeger bombs. We made it to the French show. There was an after party with the most incredible band playing. Nathan and Mark and Amelie had actually commissioned a band to create a theme song for the Awesome Comedy Festival. Absolutely epic. So there's basically, they've got their own theme song, Walk on Track, kind of like it's as catchy, if not more so, but it's certainly heavier than the Just for Laughs. The Just for Laughs one. That. They've basically got a much better. Imagine if AC/DC did the Just for Laughs track and made it catchy and good. This is it. So the band's playing, but basically, I am the lightweight. I crashed out early. I mean, granted, I had been driving 6 hours like every day that week, but I think I was probably I danced like a lunatic to the Awesome track, and then that was it. I'm basically back at the room, out cold, in bed by midnight. Did for once get my full 8 hours sleep. So again, it's like small mercies, it's blessings, right? The body does what it needs to do. So as a result, normally I have to take like multiple naps on a drive home. For the first time ever, I was actually able to drive 4.5 hours, basically straight through. Stopped in Rogersville at that Tim's there, which they served me the worst. I'm a big fan of the scrambled egg wrap. I don't know what they did to it. Literally looked like someone had like eaten the scrambled egg, vomited it, put it in a wrap, gave it to me. But again, I still ate it, obviously. I mean, beggars can't be choosers. And frankly, I have a complaint to make. There is sometimes on certain journeys not enough. This is a complaint you don't hear often from a Canadian. There are not enough Tim Hortons sometimes. There's a patch in, when you're leaving Nova Scotia, driving from Halifax to back to St. John, there's a patch where there's like 60, 70 kilometers between Tim Hortons's. And then the first one is in Oxford, Nova Scotia, where incidentally I've actually just booked the Capitol Theatre in Oxford to do a show next year. That's something someone wrote in to ask me to talk about on the show. I don't know if I'm gonna have time today, but basically about the difference between doing a show for a theatre when you're part of their season and booking it yourself. Now this, I mean, I maybe I'll talk about this another time, but I envy the comedians that can work with these big touring promotion companies, like whether it's Bruce Hills' new one or Outback, or what Just for Laughs used to do, where they basically book tours for comedians and just take control. Live Nation, as I've mentioned many times, I do it all myself. It's me booking the venue, doing the contract, filling out the forms, worrying about everything, worrying about every single last detail. I mean, I cannot imagine what it must be like to be a Kevin Bridges or a Sarah Miracle or Mark Norman and basically show up and go, where's the stage? That's the mic, that's it. Test. Boom. And not have to worry about filling every single seat yourself, every single track, everything. But I love it, obviously, and it's still in the day a huge privilege. And the way I see it is, no one wants the room to be as full as the person who has to be on the stage, and that's why I do it all myself. One of my favorite nuggets of information, actually, that Caitlin gave me before the Campbellton shows was that the boat, before they got the bridge, it used to be a boat called the Romeo and Juliet that was the ferry to Quebec. That Romeo and Juliet boat became the Milledgeville ferry. Is it still is that the Peninsula Princess? Is it still that boat? Let me know. Not many podcasts are there, comedy podcasts, where people are asking for history of ferry boats to be clarified, confirmed. Positive news in the world. Rick Moranis, who famously was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. And obviously Canadian. He is Canadian, right? Rick Moranis is obviously Canadian because he was in that Doug McKenzie thing. I'm going to check that so it looked like an absolute moron. But regardless, one of the greatest. Of course, he's bloody Canadian. 72 years old, coming out of retirement. Rick Moranis, of course, famously born in Toronto, which I obviously knew, knowing full well he was Canadian. Didn't just see that on the Wikipedias. He was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood and stepped away basically to focus on raising his children. I believe there was a tragedy. I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I believe his wife passed and he decided to look after his kids. I mean, talk about, it's an amazing thing actually when you think, well, when celebrities complain about lack of privacy and fame and all that bollocks, that you can step away. Like everyone has the choice to step away at any point, as he did in the most glorious and decent and heartwarming way. And has been away for 32 years. He is coming out of retirement. And again, let's not forget, he was at the peak. I remember when Honey, I Shrunk the Kids came out, I still have my cinema ticket for that. What was it, like 88, 89, 90? He was like the most bankable Hollywood star. And he's a Canadian. And we need Canadians doing great things. Anyway, point being, he's coming out of retirement for Spaceballs 2. How great must that script be? Oh, that's funny. The name of the film is Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. I was about to joke, but I was funny. And basically Josh Gad has called Mel Brooks, and now it's happening, and Rick Moranis is on it. So that's going to be absolutely phenomenal. Rick Moranis is back, is the good news. One of the greatest Canadians ever is back. So Sunday, thanks to me being a lightweight and not being able to take the pace, Caitlin did then proceed to, as I understand it, stay up chatting with everyone till the late hours, early hours of the morning. I'm sad I missed out on the fun for the rest of the night. I am happy though that I managed to get 8 hours, which is very, very rare thing for me. Drove home. My wife went to pick up her friend Stephanie from an airport a long way away. I went out with the kids to Cleves, went to Popeye's Chicken. Are you interested in any of this stuff? Monday, I actually went to Printworks to pick up my new merch t-shirts, which, yes, they say be more Canadian on them. They will be unveiled for the first time at the Playhouse this Friday night, and they'll be on my website from next week. Went for a nice walk. I did the double Monday night after a fairly unhealthy week away. Did my personal trainer Tara at 4:30. Then went to my friend Nat Hat's spin class at Social Cycle. Impressive when you can do the double at 47 years old after a heavy weekend and a long week like that. So that sent me up feeling great for the week. And what did I do yesterday? Meetings, back to back, haircuts. Oh, watching Matchroom on Netflix. Anyone else watching? It's basically about the company, Eddie Hearn and his father. What's his father's name? Barry Hearn, who basically run one of the biggest sports companies in the world in terms of for boxing, snooker, and darts. Now, here's one for you. Eddie loves boxing. If you're into boxing, you'll know who Eddie Hearn is. They put on, for example, the Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua fight at Wembley Stadium, which attracted 90,000 people. And AJ, the favourite, got knocked out in the 4th round. Heavily involved in the Riyadh season stuff. One of the most enlightening things, I knew darts was big in the UK, and especially because there is this incredible darts player called Luke Littler. Oh, incidentally, last week at the Debaters in Charlottetown, Claire Belford, one of the best comedians around, did a fantastic defense of darts. Absolutely hilarious and well worth watching. Anyway, Luke Littler is like 18 years old. He's a prodigy of darts, basically the best darts player of all time, just this kid that's been born with it. Isn't it a fascinating thing, like with sports and skills and talents, how, like, when it comes to, sport, there is an element of being born with it. This kid, yes, he started playing darts when he was 5, but so did lots of people. What is it that makes the greats great? And it's a fascinating thing where some families and parents put all their eggs in one basket of, like, if you can get an egg in a basket, you're set for life. And by that I mean a ball in a basket. Bad metaphor. My point is, I'm such a big fan of the egg farmers. I'm always trying to get eggs into things. My point is, it's funny how people devote their entire lives to, like Richard Williams, Serena and Venus's father, being by some accounts a monster and forcing them to train, but then made them the best in the world. And then other people like Luke Littler, yes, he's been training for years. Darts is a fascinating sport. Like, it's any sport where you can literally see people standing there smoking and drinking and while playing. It's the only sport you can smoke and drink while playing, I believe, although there is that UFC fighter who smokes cigarettes before and after fights. What's my point? My point is, in this documentary, watch it. It's called Matchroom: The Greatest Showman, and it's really interesting watching the business and the dynamics between the father and the son. The most fascinating takeaway is the fact that darts is twice as financially successful for them as boxing, which I guess is possibly because you can have tons of darts. I mean, the Brits love darts. Of course, they're sat around watching the darts for 12 hours, drinking the entire time, with boxing salons that can be over in 5 minutes. Watch it. Let me know what you think. What I was reading a book about a British comedian last week, and he was describing like what Clubland in the 60s was like, and how all these other comedians like him coming up through the ranks, and the Beatles, and how they would travel around, and how basically each little community across the UK had its own, what used to be, pardon me, like a working men's club or a community club or like a legion. And these artists would travel around doing those shows. And of course, they were notoriously difficult and rowdy gigs, and it's what trained them to be good. And some musicians went on to be the Beatles, others are still traipsing around. But it kind of made me think, wow, Clubland in the UK in the 1960s is very much like the Maritimes now, when you're a comedian like myself who's just wanting to travel around playing, whether it be legions, town halls, community halls, churches, schools, and yes, occasionally big theatres, but generally, it was just a really fascinating takeaway, hearing the way that obviously Clubland in the UK in the 60s was full of drinking and violence, but essentially the heart of it, that each community had its own club for the local members of the community to go to and see quality shows. That is the Maritimes now. And it's fascinating to me how many parallels there are to the fact that the Maritimes were, again, with the way my grandmother would describe England in the 30s and 40s and 50s, you don't need to lock your door. Everyone knew their neighbour. Like the Maritimes now. Like the Maritimes, basically, whenever people talk about how great the past was in a cultural or maybe not economic, but I guess so, but in a social or community or cultural or artistic or even in terms of social responsibility, the Maritimes is doing. I know there's problems, don't get me wrong, and I'm obviously thinking of the problems you're probably thinking of right now, which on the plus side, we do have people who care, who want to help people. Anyway, let's move on. Did I mention this last week? A book called Why Can't I Just Enjoy Things? A Comedian's Guide to Autism by Pia Novelli. If not, read it. It is a great book, a kind of illuminating, funny, often painfully honest book about what it means to live with and come to understand autism, especially for someone like Pierre, who is one of the UK's best comedians, who actually does a podcast with two of my favourite comedian of all time, Frank Skinner, and one of my favourite people when I worked in London, Emily Dean. He was diagnosed in adulthood, interestingly enough, diagnosed by a heckler. He was talking about the way that his brain works, and the heckler shouted out something like, "It sounds like you have Asperger's, sounds like you have autism." And he looked into it. And like myself with ADHD, came to have his diagnosis in his 30s. It is truly enlightening, hilarious. I relate to so much of it. Like, I mean, just the name, Why Can't I Just Enjoy Things? The story of my life. Like, why can't I just ever just enjoy a thing without my brain running off in 500 different directions? Why can't I just be sitting? I can't do it. I can't switch. I'm sure if I took the meds, it might help, but I'm not going to do that. So it's kind of about hidden neurodiversity and diagnosis, and the fact that he didn't know he was autistic for most of his life. So how he managed the kind of quirks of his that bewildered him, the things that he used to kind of mask the way that he thought and was, the difficulties with relationships, and then also the identity shift, which is something I'm just kind of still going through now with my later in life ADHD diagnosis, which is looking back and going, oh, that's why I was struggling then, and coming to terms with the parts of what parts are adaptations, what parts do I need to change. Again, the strengths and the quirks, and not everything's a problem. Like, crucially, Pierre does not present autism as a burden, and he talks about the unexpected advantages, things that neurotypical folks take for granted, and it's absolutely brilliant. It really resonated hard. You don't need to be interested in or have autism or know someone with autism, even though I'm sure we do all this. But yes, just the way he talks about kind of the politics and the social angle, like the way small talk and social niceties. Really, really, really good book. He also has a lovely voice. So if you do want to listen to the audiobook, speaking of nice voices, I talked last week about Men in Love by Irvin Welsh. If you don't have time to read this doorstop of a book, please, please, please listen to the audiobook. In fact, listen to any Irvin Welsh audiobook. Tam Dean Byrne, who does the I'm not saying just a voiceover artist, but he is it's a full-blown one-man show. Tam Dean Byrne should do the way that he shifts his voices, the way that he can do like Spud, junked out of his head, sick boy, on cocaine, receiving a blowjob, to Renton being heartbroken, to Begbie being psychotic. He switches the voices with such skill and ease, and you literally feel like you are in the room with these characters. I can truly say there is no greater voiceover artist in the world, voiceover actor, multi-actor, voice artist than Tam Dean Byrne. If you like Irvin Welsh books, if you like the film or book Trainspotting, listen to Tam Dean Byrne. The way that it's a powerhouse, and you will find yourself howling with laughter at the scenarios that Welsh puts his characters in. Anyway, Novelli has a wonderful voice. One of the things that I also found fascinating on the audiobook was that Pierre Novelli and his friend Phil Wang discuss the concept of, there's this idea now that you can't, the concept of shared experience, or not shared experience, sorry, the concept of lived experience. That's it. I got mixed up there. He's talking about how we're told you can't write a book from the perspective of someone that isn't yours, or you can't, this idea. Bill Bird handled that idea, for example, that you shouldn't be allowed to play someone that you're not. So people were complaining that Bryan Cranston had played a paraplegic in a movie, and they were saying he shouldn't have done that. That part could have gone to a paraplegic. And Bill Burr goes, well, like it's called acting, right? And so they make one of the jokes that they make it's a fascinating conversation, but it's like they're saying how ludicrous it is that someone can't, for example, write a book or write a film or star in a film about something that isn't their own lived experience. I guess at base level, it's like you can't write you can't act as someone that isn't the same sexuality as you. So if you're gay, you can't act straight. And if you're straight, you can't act gay. If you're a straight man, you can't write a book about being a gay woman. If you're a gay woman, you can't write about being a straight man. Which is, of course, ridiculous. But there was briefly a period, and maybe it's that people were saying if it's not your lived experience, then you can't write about it. And they make a brilliant point. I think it's Phil or Pierre makes the point that it's a bit like someone walking along and seeing people eating in a restaurant and going, "Why are they eating? Why are they eating? I'm not hungry. So why are they eating?" Anyway, very brilliantly done. The book's great. And the podcast at the end with Phil and Pierre is also wonderful. Don't know, are you watching the Charlie Sheen documentary on Netflix? weird reconstructions. It's such a. Is anyone not just sick of that podcast, of that not podcast, of that Netflix documentary thing now? Yeah, we know that they sit down in the chair, they do the clapper, like that. The first few times that was vaguely clever because we were getting a peek behind the curtain. Now it's like a spoof. Oh, where do I sit? Do I sit here? Oh, where should I do the clapperboard? Yeah, okay, ready to go? Yeah, let's go. Everyone I know was murdered. It's just like, well, in the case of Charlie Sheen, but the problem with the thing is he's so kind of unrepentant and has clearly done some monstrous things, but also clearly does think that his partying years were pretty cool. And it's weird to have John Cryer kind of rightly slagging him off, but also sounding a little bit bitter. Weird reconstructions. Like if Charlie Sheen's telling a story about, well, this is the kind of awful thing he did, flying a plane hammered with 300 passengers on board. We don't need to see a reconstruction. Snitching on Heidi Fleiss is just shocking, and she does give him what for and does chew him out for it, and good on her for doing that. That he basically says, well, I was going to go to jail, so I had to snitch on Heidi Fleiss and send her down. Screw you, Charlie. That is the work of a dick. Okay, I have the few other subjects I think we will come to next week. I guess all this leaves me to say is message me with any tips for Frederick's. Oh, books that I'm reading. I just read Sherry Fitch, who is one of the greatest children's writers of all time, also proudly a maritimer. I read the Hullabaloo Bugaboo Day, which is absolutely a hilarious book. And of course, because it's a children's book, I'm writing a couple of children's books right now, and one of them is going to be similar size and format to this. I'm also reading Andrew MacLean's fourth backyard history book. 4 books. He's released 4 books in the time it's taken some of us to write one. He's an absolute genius. As ever, it is full of incredible insights, such as the oldest unsolved murder in New Brunswick, the secret of the abandoned radio tower, ghosts, mutinies, you name it, it's all in Andrew MacLean's new backyard history book. I'm also reading Natalie McMaster's autobiography / photo scrapbook / coffee table book. Is called I Have a Love Story. She's, of course, one of the world's greatest violinists, like my hero, Andre Rieu. Okay, all the other subjects we'll have to wait till next week. Tonight's show in Kingston, I'm hoping that Susan White will be there, one of my favourite authors. I'm reading her book, The Right Retreat, right now. She's, of course, famously the subject of my joke, the 50 Chickens Stolen joke. One of the things have I watched? Matchroom, Platonic, mentioned, the girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. That's all good. Was anyone at the Mark Normand show in Halifax at the Rebecca Cohen Auditorium? If so, please let me know. I would love to hear how it was. Tonight, by the way, at the Kingston Farmers Market show, we will be auctioning off to raise money for the Kingston Farmers Market a photography and visual design one-day workshop with the great, legendary, heroic Freeman Patterson, one of the greatest photographers in Canadian history. Thank you for letting me chew your ears off. I've got 2 minutes to keep it under 1 hour. Just a reminder, go and check out all of the amazing things that Pascan Aviation are doing. Check out their gorgeous planes, the flights to Halifax, but of course the fact that you can fly anywhere in the world, starting on Pascan and connecting through Halifax out of my beloved YSJ. I'm going to be in Cochrane at the Comedy Festival in Cochrane, courtesy of the amazing Jake Hirsch, in 2 weeks' time. If you have any friends in or around Calgary, please do let them know to come and see me in Cochrane. I've also realised I've completely forgotten to go through the new volume of Edit, the first ever art and design issue. It's on sale now. We are actually, it's been literally flying out of our warehouse / basement. We have very few copies left, so do go and buy it in stores rather than order it from us, because we're almost sold out. Indigo Shoppers, Walmart across the country. Everything's in it. It's art and design issue. Cover is Ridge on the Chimney, an amazing modern masterpiece, architectural marvel by the great Brian McKay Lyons. I have 1 minute left, so I'm going to whiz through the issue. 1 minute. Dooryard Arts Festival by the great Caitlin Dean. Miller Knoll showroom at Chandler. Sales. Of course, River Mullins reviews all the great new children's books. The Beaver Book Art Gallery's next chapter. Newbornlander, an incredible company run by Costanza in Newfoundland and Labrador. Hampton Brewing Company, Bricks and Birches. The new Audi S3. By the way, massive hats off to Audi Halifax for kindly sponsoring my big stand-up special taping at the Rebecca Cohen next year. Archstone Physiotherapy, James Wilson Social Studies, Jared Betts, one of the greatest artists and Canada's ever produced, one of the greatest musicians, Christina Martin, interviewed by two of the greatest podcasters of all time, Mike and Kristen. What I Know by Norman Hector, photographs by the great Kelly Lawson and Brandon Hicks on Helen Crichton. That's it. I did it under an hour. I can't believe it. Can you believe it, Reese? Produced by Podstarter. Lots to come next week. Please do send your questions to me at jamesmullinger@gmail.com. Yes, that's my personal email, but if you've listened to the end, I'll give you my address too. I'll give you my phone number too if you want. Whatever you want. Just keep listening, my friends. Thanks for being here. My name is Willie Ramble. I'm James Mullinger. You've been absolutely beautiful. God bless you. Bye.
Mullinger's Weekly Ramble.